Halo Infinite seems to be ambitious in many ways, but there is one feature that it's bringing back that has only seen an appearance from a single Halo game. So what is it exactly, my friends? Sprint? No, I'm joking. Plus, it's more than one game that's been in. There's only one game that it has been in, and 343 Industries shouted about it a lot at the time. But 343 in Halo Infinite don't really seem to be discussing it, despite it being in front of us all of this time. So we'll do what we do best, and let's break it down.
Ultimate Halo.
Hey up lads and lasses, Fletch here from Ultimate Halo, and just as a quick heads up, Jeff Steitzer has a personal service announcement for you all.
Subscribe now to Ultimate Halo for more unfriggin' believable Halo content.
Yes, that's right, because we're 5,000 subscribers away from 100,000 subscribers. How mental is that? So by hitting that button, your support means the absolute world. It helps me reach a goal I've always wanted to hit. And just as a heads up, I want to say thank you so much, because last week we did a 24-hour charity live stream for Motor Neurons Disease Association, and we raised $22,500. Wow, that is incredible. So there will be a highlight video coming soon, and you will not want to miss that. So to find out what this feature exactly is, I think it's time we look back at the E3 2019 trailer, where 343 showed off the opening cutscene of the game, which introduces us to the pilot. It took me a while to figure out what was different compared to a traditional cutscene, but just look at the flow of it. Can you see at that no point whatsoever there's a traditional cut, it's all one shot. So what do we mean by all of this exactly? Because in film, TV, music videos, games and animation, they all have cuts. This is skipping from one angle to another, whether it be for dramatic effect, convenience, narrative direction, etc. It's a very convenient way of helping the director tell a story, but in Halo Infinite, from what we've seen so far, the game seamlessly moves from the camera from one shot to another without a traditional cut. There's more movement than there is cuts. Now I'm sure there are plenty of you saying, well, what's exactly special about this? Because of course in traditional films, this poses much more of a challenge due to the physical and technical restraints, which films such as 1917 do an amazing job with, and it uses well-planned CGI to fill out those gaps. However, when it comes to video games, while some of those barriers are removed, there are still huge challenges that make this difficult. But before we talk about the challenges, I think we should talk about why it's actually a fantastic addition to the game, and why I'm personally very excited about it. So first of all, I think it provides a sense of scale, especially from a more intimate perspective. Just look at this shot of Chief and the pilot. There are times in the past where I thought Chief doesn't look as big as he should, and looking into this now, the way the camera slows down, it tightens the shot, and it really illustrates how big the Master Chief is. It's not just that though, but the fact that you can see the camera move in real time and get into this position gives you the perspective work to show this off. It's also very seamless. There's no pause, no jitter, no gaps between you playing the game and watching the story unfold. If anything, it heightens the immersion if it's done right, because it makes you feel like you are there in the action. You are being the spectator for this story. But interestingly enough, I did mention earlier that 343 had played with this feature in the past, and this game was Halo 5 Guardians. Now remember that epic opening cutscene? Well, this is an amazing piece of work in my opinion, and whilst it's a shame it wasn't carried out throughout the whole game, I've got to admit that this scene being one shot from the intimate Pelican interior down to scaling a mountain whilst gunning down hordes of the Covenant was nothing short of incredible. Now we know exactly some of the things that a single shot game can bring to the table, it's time to look at the challenges that it does pose. And in 2018, Dore Arazi, I hope I didn't butcher his name, the director of photography in God of War, talked about how they enacted their vision to do it in their game, because this is a game that does an extremely good job of it. In essence, he had to talk about how they had to manage across different teams and disciplines. The difference with this game compared to a film is that you need to have a transition from cutscene to gameplay and have that happen smoothly. The difference with God of War as well at the same time is also that it's a third person game, which means that the camera can much easily detach, whereas in Halo Infinite, you're going inside the head of Master Chief, meaning that you have to pan into position like the game does here. Now this comes to one of the main difficulties or challenges, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a videographer or a photographer or anything in that discipline, but within a story you want to switch to another character's perspective or story. Now you have to get very creative with this because basically we're following the chief from his perspective, and we not only see one example of this in Halo Infinite, but also one in Halo Wars 2. At the end of the trailer we see Chief access a terminal with Escharum as a hologram, and then he cleverly transitions into the Fletch, and whilst we don't know what happens after this because the demo kinda just goes to a traditional trailer, it's safe to say or assume that for now we are going to follow Escharum from that part onwards within that cutscene. It's a smart way to get you out of Chief's head and also looking around into Escharum's perspective from a completely different part of the world. Similarly, and also cleverly, in Halo Wars 2 they successfully transition from Cutter looking at a desk tablet thing like a big map to looking at Aatrox doing the exact same thing. What they do is just pan down the table and it changes colour. It's a very clever way to get from one point to another without having a really jarring cut. It was a very smooth transition, so I imagine we'll see many similar elements within Halo Infinite. So this goes to show that 343 really do have some cool tricks up their sleeves to get from one point to another without a cut or having to physically drag you through the gameplay to get to point B. The organisation for this must be incredible because your motion capture, videographers, directors, gameplay designers, and most importantly, your narrative direction needs to be on point. It would be a ginormous task to flick the switch midway through development and say let's change what planet we visit, because then you have to actually change the build up to the next mission and reshoot it all, and that's a lot of work when it's all one shot. Anyway, let me know what you think because I think this is just such a great feature. I want to see how it pans out long term throughout the whole game. I have some skepticisms about it, but hopefully it all works out just fine. Once again, my name is Jack Fletcher. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time on the one and the only Ultimate Halo.
Subscribe now to Ultimate Halo for more unfriggin' believable Halo content.